Just one moment. Hello? It is a snow day outside, so I don't know how that translates to the lighting of this video. Hopefully it doesn't look bad. And today I want to talk about a book that I read. I don't remember. I think it was last year, and it is part of my dissertation. I'm talking about The Idiot. Elif Batuman's The Idiot, not Dostoevsky. Although I do recommend Dostoevsky's The Idiot as well. Actually, they do have the same name because Bauman does basically what Dostoevsky does. She places an innocent, naive character in a new environment to see how this character develops, to infect the good nature of the main character, etc. Basically, Dostoevsky's The Idiot and Elif Bauman's The Idiot are studies of human nature. Set in 1995, we follow Selin, a freshman at Harvard University. And this is basically the coming of age story of a very introspective type of person who is still shedding the last remains of girlhood, but is hesitant to take her first steps into adulthood and wonders what all of this means. This search of meaning translates to Selin's narrative voice, which is delighted in observing others and to question several things. A novel of ideas, I would say that the main question or the main thesis of this novel is one for understanding, is one for meaning. She wants to arrive to meaning. She wants to understand others and herself. As long as coming of age goes, Selin reaches the typical milestones that we could expect: drinking alcohol, making friends, having clumsy sex, etc., etc. And that is why I feel like I don't need to give you a big description of the plot or anything like that, because if I give you coming of age, first year of college, we already have preconceived notions of what should happen or what could happen. And I've seen this book several times described as no plots, just vibes, or with books within that category, which I wouldn't say that there's no plot. It's just that because we already expect what type of plot we're going to get, then is not the surprises doesn't come in the shape of a plot or an innovative plot, but it comes again through narrative voice. So on this review, I would like to focus on what I find unique in The Idiot. So Selin is a young woman, and like many young women do, she experiences an intense crush. I am hesitant on saying she falls in love or there is romance. There is the mimicking of the illusion of a romantic plot or subplot in Selin's life. But I would think that it first stems from this initial crush that she has on an older upperclassman guy. His name is Ivan. But the relationship seems to make an argument more about language and again understanding and miscommunication than it does about love or what we would typically expect in a coming of age college novel. So Selin's conversations, or I would say more interactions with Ivan, are divided. Some of them are epistolary and some of them are in person, and the epistolary ones are weird. Selin and Ivan send emails, and Ivan writes the most convoluted, annoying, unconvincing, and to me, pretentious emails that I've ever seen. And they don't discuss the content of these emails in person. So what happens is that through Ivan, we have, through Ivan, I feel like we have three characters in one. We have what Selin thinks she is like or what he might be thinking of. Then we have the Ivan that she sometimes talks to in person that seems completely detached from the Ivan that we get to experience through emails. And that Ivan, that's the one I mentioned, that is very convoluted, pretentious, a weird person. Why would even want to talk to them? I hate him. But I think that this experience with him has to do about language. That is something that Selin is very interested in and understanding, and just human relations and how they can be built on very little. Let's leave it at that. I would say that the relation between Ivan and Selin rivals Connell and Marianne from Normal People, if you read that. In miscommunication, Connell and Marianne, you could still tell that they are in love and they have deep love and care for each other. And Selin and Ivan are a bit more nuanced, a bit more on the gray zone, a bit more juvenile in some ways. The way that they write emails, though, I don't know if it's because, well, the beginning, since it's set in 1995, the beginning page makes a big deal about emailing and what does it mean, and a big how is it a big class status to even have an email address at this time, and etc. So it seems like they delight more in writing these emails as writing into the abyss, as one would write into a journal or on our notes app on our phones, than for the purpose of communication, which, I mean, I didn't experience that. I wasn't born in 1995, but I think it's a interesting take on it that I think about it constantly, actually. I don't know if anyone would swoon over Selin and Ivan's interactions, but as I was saying, I wasn't alive in 1995. I often, while reading this book and their interactions, I was feeling that I was too old to think that their relationship could be romanticized or idealized in any way, which is something that I would like to talk about now, since I would recommend The Idiot because I think that it transports us into a more tender form of ourselves, a more youthful version of ourselves. It's transporting us back to those first steps into adulthood before we abandon this grandiose idea of who we are and what are we going to do in the world and how should we communicate. By the characters themselves, the emos could be seen as their true self, as trying to be themselves and being honest, but you can also tell that they're trying to impress each other and they're trying to seem mysterious and main character syndrome and all of that. And it could go both ways. You could think that is annoying and don't want to read that, but it could also if you give it a chance, it could make you go back to that tender form of yourself that could have been like that. I don't know if everyone was like that, but I definitely was in my teenage years. And once I tap back into, oh yeah, you used to be quite annoying as well in those regards, that brought me back, and that's when I kind of understood why Selin as a protagonist works so much in this book, and why, even though she's flawed, I found impossible to leave her alone. Even though if I thought, I mean, I didn't think about quitting the book or anything, but in the moment when I got frustrated with her and her actions and with Ivan and with other things, I still thought, well, I'm not gonna leave you here. I'm not gonna abandon you. I'm gonna go with you to the end, to the fires of Mordor. I just don't think that we should think of The Idiot or go into this book as thinking this is a love story, this is a romance, I'm gonna swoon over this couple. No. Once we start thinking about them in terms of language and power and understanding and humanity and meaning and disconnection, then they become quite interesting. For example, they often don't explain each other. They leave things unsaid, never to pick them up again. But they also seem to believe that they possess great knowledge of each other. They know a deep part of each other, even though they don't understand each other, and they express not knowing and not understanding. It's quite interesting when we stop thinking or reducing the relation into oh, this is romantic, this is love, instead of what if we think of this about, I don't know, if we add the elements of the age difference to college majors, to foreignness in the American school system. Like if we start thinking about all of these other complex intersections, then they become quite complex in their interaction. Like it doesn't even matter if there is love or if there is attraction or if there is kinship. I do think that their dynamics become way more complex. Even though I didn't enjoy those exchanges, I think that this book is worth it, especially because I'm not writing my dissertation on any of these interactions. I don't even mention Ivan. I need both of my hands to do this. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me well. And yeah, that is true. I don't write about Ivan. I'm actually never going to mention him. All of these annotations you see in my copy are not about Ivan. I am going to write about Selin's experience at the university, at the college campus, as part of her academics, but also the physicality of Harvard University. I'm going to write about power. I'm going to write about class. I'm going to write about alienation and disillusionment. It's going to be great. I find these aspects that I mentioned way more interesting because they are focused on Selin's experience with the outer world, not just with one person. They are focused on coming out of one's shelves and facing society, facing the world. And for example, she often thinks of herself in terms of other because she is the daughter of Turkish immigrants. So she thinks of herself, and obviously there is a part of her upbringing that feels non-American or too American, depending where she is. She inhabits this hybrid identity, but at the same time, sometimes she gets called out on her privilege when people say, well, not everyone goes to Harvard University. Well, some people have to work while they're in university, or some people have student loans. And all of these things kind of shock her sometimes to be called out like that, because she's often thinking of herself as the minority. Again, she is very young. This is the first time that she experiences a wide variety of people that come from different backgrounds. She also experienced people who are very wealthy, who are way more privileged than her. There are moments when she leaves the university, the college campus, and then it becomes kind of a travel narrative, which also becomes this prestige that hangs over her head when she mentions, oh yeah, I'm a student at Harvard. I think that these moments of humanity in her experience as a freshman in university bring in more of a raw, honest depiction of her and her humanity and her character, her naivete, her innocence, all of that in a way more enjoyable and interesting part than that same mission when it's done through Ivan and that relation with him, if that makes sense. Going back to the narrative voice and how Selin is a great narrator, is that, as I said, she's highly observant of everything. And that makes the narrative quite, not cartoonish, I don't know how to say it, kind of, it's formed by vignettes, like little windows into Selin's day. For example, she might start her day with a very deep conversation with her friend Svetlana about memory and the American education system. Then she goes to class, and then the next scene we see, she is with Ivan and he's eating jello. It goes from the very deep, the very raw, the boring, the mundane, the awkward, and I feel like this rapid succession of events and feelings and changes in moods and perceptions, it's a very accurate depiction of being a young woman. And I'm not saying that it's only women. I'm sure men also notice things. It's not, the book Batuman is not afraid to let Selin explore these avenues, and is not pressure into giving us plot, meaning meaningful conversation, meaningful experience. She is so intellectual. She's so special. We know she's special. We know she's intellectual. And she's still a person. She still needs to do her laundry. And these vignettes, this structure that seems quite fragmented, doesn't reach the level of experimental. It's not a Joan Didion kind of fragmentation. It's all linked through Selin's very constant observation. I think that through reading The Idiot, we understand her character quite well, maybe even better than she does, which is so ironic because she wants to understand and she longs for understanding, and we understand her quite well. It's just her that she doesn't understand most of the things and herself that well yet. To conclude, I want to say that I do recommend this novel. Please read The Idiot. If you have read it, let me know what you think. I feel like most of the images online and the nature that we make quick reviews in other platforms, and we need to really zero it down to a couple of sentences, a couple of words, doesn't make it justice. Because I feel like this novel resists, it's a novel of ideas. It resists to be categorized in some way. Because if you say, oh, it's a coming of age story, you think, well, it's much more than a coming of age story. If you think a travel narrative, it's much more than travel narrative. It's much more than a campus novel. It's much more than a romance. And it's more than women's fiction. Because of how much it resists categorization, when you see a picture on Instagram that just says, I don't know, no plot, just vibes, then the experience of reading it falls short to the level of expectations, to your horizon of expectations that you put in. So I would just say, surrender to the narrative, surrender to fiction. The willing suspension of disbelief enters the chat. I think you have to submit to this type of novels. We need to stop resisting, especially if you're out of the age range, if you're not 18, 19, maybe 20, or maybe you are, but your life experience has been very different, not as privileged as Selin's. We might have this resistance and be hypercritical of her, but we need to take a step back and think, okay, I see you. Go live your life, Selin. You're gonna make mistakes. All of us have. You are wrong about some things. You're right about some, and you're gonna grow up. You are at the cusp. That's what coming of age stories are. There are cusp moments of people's lives that they are gonna go back to them and think of them and be like, "I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that?" And that's fine. That's what happens. So surrender. Go with Selin and say, "Go live your life. I'll be here. I'll hold your hand while you do it, while you learn." When I think about the idiot, I think of the idiot as that teenage friend we all had or were. Brilliant, unique, and so painfully naive that you want to protect, that you go back in your memories and think, that was so beautiful. And so being like that is so short that before you notice, it's gone. So that is all from me. I hope you like this book review. If you have read The Idiot, if you would like me to do a review on the sequel, Either or by Batuman, and I've also read The Possessed, which is a collection of essays by Elif Batuman, I could also give you a bit of the inside scoop of what parts of The Idiot are based on Batuman's real life experience. I will be happy to do so. Other than that, thanks for watching. Keep reading, and when you're not, follow me in all my social media, link down below. See you next time. Bye!